This past NFL season was one unlike any other. To celebrate, we're going to mock and laugh at each and every team's mistakes and blunders from the 2020 NFL season. Enjoy. The defense was a top 10 unit that sometimes scored more points than the offense, which toted an injury-riddled quarterback that led to the turf leading in catches. And when the throws were good, the receivers couldn't separate better than a bandage when you try to take it off. You definitely got less in the divorce. You may have won the AFC East crown for the first time since you lost 4 straight Super Bowls and went 13-3 this season. But let's not forget how King Henry murdered that defense last year. And speaking of your defense, have a nice Hail Murray catch. Guess you should play defense. Too bad your best season in decades was finished by a whooping from a team that nobody expected you to beat in the conference championships this year. Better luck next year, Bills Mafia. After going 3-3 with the bearded man from Harvard, you felt the need to throw in the youngster from Bama, who decided he wanted to look worse than the quarterback who had people 2 years ago tweeting #TankForTua. He may have gone 5-2 as a starter, but it was thanks to that defense that they decided to blow up. You finished the season 10-6 just to miss the playoffs, even the first year of the extra wildcard team. Did I see a report Tua was throwing 5 interceptions in practice a few weeks ago? We knew you were going to be bad. We just didn't think it was going to be this bad. You had an opportunity to get the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. Instead, you decided to win 2 pointless games against the Browns and Rams, which led you to Zach Wilson, who has promise. The issue is you haven't developed a quarterback successfully since Joe Namath. Let's see if you can at least double your win total this year. You looked so good. You had an 11-0 start to the season. And then as soon as you lost to the name redacted, it all fell apart. You brought back old Ben to play quarterback after you had plenty of moments this past year where you looked worse than Cam. You'll be lucky if Juju can dance you to a winning record this year, as the ghosts of that first quarter start in the wildcard round will haunt you for your entire 2021 season. Congrats, Lamar Jackson. You won a playoff game for the first time in your career, just to get stuffed by Buffalo in the divisional round. At this rate, you'll maybe win a Super Bowl when Lamar is taking all of your cap space. You have defenses calling your offensive plays at the line of scrimmage during the game. For being a powerhouse, you somehow lost to Pittsburgh twice and even let my terrible Patriots beat you because a little rain made you lose all your ability to play football. Good luck with that predictable offense next year. Yes, we know you made the playoffs and scored 28 points in the first quarter of the wildcard round against the Steelers. But why won't you talk about losing to Chad Henne in the divisional round? Almost knocked off the defending champs, but you couldn't stop a quarterback who hadn't won a game since 2013. You even somehow found a way to lose to the Jets. Even in your success, you have to have your Browns moments, and that was your 2020 example. You drafted your future at quarterback. He looked great when he wasn't getting killed behind that terrible O-line. Zach Taylor is one of the young head coaches on the hot seat. And what does the team decide to do? You draft another wide receiver instead of protecting Joe Burrow and getting him a new offensive lineman. When Burrow tears his other ACL, maybe you can get one of those wide receivers to play quarterback for you. Your team is ran by King Henry, who could not carry you past the Packers or the Browns in the regular season, and was stuffed by the Ravens come the postseason. You let a young quarterback who was mocked for never winning a playoff game beat you at your own stadium. The Jadeveon Clowney experiment was a failure, and your first-round pick played 4 snaps before getting traded and cut a few days later. But Julio Jones is going to solve all those defensive problems you have at the moment. Your quarterback retired on you before the season 2 years prior, so after that mess, you decided to bring in the washed kid maker in Philip Rivers to run a team filled of young, talented players. Rivers retired at the end of the season after how it ended. You gave the Jaguars their only win on the season. You snuck into the playoffs to keep it close to the Bills and lose despite some of the most BS calls you could have gotten. And this is coming from a Pats fan who hated watching Buffalo in the playoffs. Let's see if Carson Wentz can have a revival worthy of bringing the playoffs back to Indianapolis. You won 4 games this past year, leading you to getting the 3rd overall pick. Oh wait, not your pick because you traded it 2 years ago to the Dolphins for Laramie Tunsil. The Dolphins are laughing in draft picks, and you Texans are crying in misery. The only bright spot from your team last year was your star quarterback, who thought he was enough of a star to not get sued by over 20 women for sexual assault at massage parlors. Good luck this year, Texans. You won your Week 1 matchup against the Colts, then decided to lose 15 straight. The defense was awful, even after spending 2 first-round picks last year on the defensive side, as those players were irrelevant last year. You held on to your coach for a few too many years, thinking you could get back to that 2017 year glory. Now you just hope a retired coach and a number 1 overall quarterback can revive a dead franchise. Oh, Chiefs, you were so close. Your 2 regular season losses were ugly ones to division rivals, who are figuring out the same blueprint the Patriots were to figuring out how to stop you. Lucky enough, you didn't face any of them in the playoffs, so it was smooth sailing, until you decided to run your mouth against the greatest man to ever play the game. Wrong move to get the old man hyped, as he and his army crushes your soul, as it was the easiest Super Bowl the GOAT had to play in 2 decades, which included that being his 11th Super Bowl match. But you'll be the next dynasty. There was no wood to be knocked last year after that roller coaster of a year. The media leads Carr to be the scapegoat, except he was the only thing keeping this team afloat last year. Your first-round wide receiver was the 2nd worst drafted in the first 2 rounds in a class that was supposed to be the most talented receiver class out there. And that was second only to the Eagles passing up Jefferson. It was that terrible defense, though, that led you to lose 5 of your last 7 and knock you out of playoff contention. John Gruden is loving his $10 million annually, though. You drafted the future of your franchise. Congrats! You fans are lucky the unluckiest man in the NFL had to have his lung punctured, or you might not have seen the magnificent Herbert until the season was over. You finished on a 4-game win streak, but that was after New England decided to kick your butt for a 45-0 goose egg, in which for once they benched Cam Newton because they were ahead. Special teams is important, but that team clearly does not know it. Your future looks bright, especially if you magically bring in Rodgers. You had 4 different starting quarterbacks last year, though, one of them being a practice squad wide receiver who threw 1 for 7 and an interception after your 4 rostered quarterbacks were out on the COVID list. Your defensive-minded head coach couldn't put together a defense good enough to win more than 5 games, but you brought him back for some reason, even though the problem is offense and your young developing quarterback has 0 guidance. The icing on the cake is that John Elway is no longer the GM, but in a higher-up position. Enjoy those trophies, John, as the Broncos won't win another one while you are still there. The name redacted, before the season could even begin, your owner and franchise had so much negative press and scandals come out that it overshadowed the name change and rebrand from the Redskins. In a year with minimal fans, you still didn't have people in the stadium cheering for your team, and why should they after the product you decided to put up last year? Dwayne Haskins got cut after not even 2 years because he had 0 work ethic but liked to brag, and as a result, Washington let a dead man walking play at quarterback. And even despite all this, because of the terrible division you're in, your defense carried you to the playoffs to get edged out by the eventual champs. Maybe Fitzmagic or Heineke can save you this year. Your season can be summarized in that Daniel Jones 80-yard touchdown or should I say, non-touchdown run. You made strides beating the Seahawks with backup Colt McCoy, but your team was still really bad. Your Pro Bowl tight end can't catch, your top 5 running back can't stay healthy, and your defense is one of the most inconsistent you can get, though showing promise. You had the chance to make the playoffs, but the Eagles decided to not let that happen. If the Eagles won their last game, you would have set the record for the division winner with the least amount of wins on the year with 6. Let's see if these new receivers you brought in can actually, catch. You say it's your year every year, and then it's not. Dak got hurt after putting up MVP numbers early in the season. Zeke had a case of the fumbles. Your O-line went from one of the best to one of the worst. And what was that excuse for a defense last year? Your best DB was a rookie second-round pick who allowed a big play a game. You thought you would get something different in Mike McCarthy, but in reality, you got exactly what was expected. And what did it cost? A 10-loss season where your final game was a loss to your former clapper. Have fun opening the season against the defending champs. Where do I even begin with you? You were laughed at for drafting a quarterback in the second round, and then he actually played because that quarterback you paid way too much money to, well, he was actually really bad. And then after the season, you traded him and took an extreme amount of dead cap. You boasted one of the worst, if not the worst, offenses in the league, with a trash can for a defense on top of it. And it was so bad that you even tied the Bengals. Your analytics coach failed and was promptly fired after throwing in the third-string quarterback halfway through the game when Hurts wasn't even playing that bad. This was the last game of the year. To make matters worse in the offseason, you hired a coach from the place your old OC went to after he left you. The person who really needs to be gone is still sitting in his GM chair, though. If this was for the offseason, I could go on about Rodgers, but we can follow along with the setup of why Rodgers wants to get away from your franchise. In the 2020 draft, you traded up in the first round for Rodgers' successor, who couldn't even beat out Tim Boyle for the backup job. Your second round pick was for a running back that would have made a bit more sense as he looks good, but you already had Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams on the roster. Your third round pick was a tight end that never played and got benched behind a nobody in Robert Tonyan. Despite this misdraft, you still made the conference championship just to lose to Brady. You really can't make it past the semis, and you definitely won't if you lose Rodgers to Jeopardy this offseason. You had a quarterback problem. Trubisky was a question mark, so you traded for Nick Foles? Did you not watch him in Jacksonville? Trubisky won the job to start the season, but you benched him midway through week 3 to get an even worse product out of Foles. The only offensive weapon you have is Allen Robinson, but he doesn't even want to be there. Your defense somehow managed to carry you through enough games that you stumbled into the playoffs just to get beat by Drew Brees and Nickelodeon and slimed. Your MVP is now in Buffalo, and you're relying on Andy Dalton until your new project hopefully develops. That's if you can finally develop a quarterback. You like that? No, we don't like you wasting a good quarterback, 2 top wide receivers, a top 5 running back, and go 7-9. That defense was absolutely horrendous, especially the secondary. Your 2 starting quarterbacks were first and third round rookies, and they just got toasted game after game. Your only win against a team with a winning record was a fluke game against the Packers. You can score, but not enough to keep up with the worthless mess you call a defense. Oh yeah, a washed Patrick Peterson will definitely solve those problems. Lions are supposed to have a mighty roar, but this group of Lions couldn't even let out a purr. Stafford could only carry you so much, which led to him wanting to get out of there. Now you're stuck with Goff, but that's a different bag of nuts to deal with. You wanted a head coach to be a meaner Belichick, but all it did was create turmoil in the locker room and a defense that was an exact copy of when it was in New England, except with no talent, so it didn't work. The bend don't break philosophy broke so many times it led to a loss of job. Rocket science did not help this team at all last year. You knew it was Drew Brees' last year. You built this super team around him. Even when Brees got injured for a few weeks, you still managed to win games. The losses to Kansas City and the Eagles foreshadowed your demise, as even though you swept the Buccaneers in the regular season, you couldn't stop them in full form when it really mattered, wasting away the final year of your franchise savior. Now, the keys are being handed off to Jameis Winston? You may have won the Super Bowl, but you will not escape this, as you had blunders of your own. You recruited an old man to lead your team, a man who could throw it deep once a game, and for some reason can't count how many downs there are. Despite this, he still was the smartest offensive coach on your team, as he made Arians and Leftwich realize that you play better on offense when you don't throw it 30 yards downfield every other play. And now, after winning the Super Bowl, you were the first team in NFL history to bring back the entire starting 22 after winning the big game. God damn it. You brought in the man with no knees to play quarterback after just letting go of the quarterback with no shoulder, and you thought it would make you better? The Bridgewater experiment was an absolute disaster of a failure, and when CMC got hurt because of the abuse that was put on him, your offense fell apart. The young core on defense still clearly needs time to develop, as their lack of experience showed, though it is possibly one of the most promising defenses going over. But hey, the man who can see ghosts will really help this team next year. Ah, the choke artist. You still have not let your demons pass, as on multiple occasions this past season, you choked away leads, 2 of them giving you over a 99% chance to win at certain points of the game. Just mind-blowing how a team of professionals who got embarrassed in the biggest stage of your life can't seem to figure it out in season games. Might be because of that terrible defense you put out last year, that other than Grady Jarrett has 0 bright sides. Have fun without Julio Jones this year. The first half, the offense was good, but the defense was bad. But as soon as the defense got it together in the second half of the season, the offense fell apart. Russell Wilson was being a chef and cooking up a storm, and then all of a sudden, wasn't. For the talent you have on that offense, it's embarrassing how bad you do on it. The defense had nobody who could get to the quarterback until you traded for Carlos Dunlap. And to think you gave up having multiple firsts, Khalil Mack, and more to keep an aging quarterback. Since 2019, you have been severely inconsistent. You find ways to knock off teams like the Buccaneers and Cardinals, but then you get demolished by the Dolphins and give the Jets one of their only 2 wins on the year. You stumbled into the playoffs with a backup quarterback who got injured, so your starter with a thumb injury had to come in and play, yet you still somehow won against a terrible Seahawks team. Didn't matter as you walked into Lambeau Field to get thwacked. I'd say you could fix your holes in the draft, but you don't have a first-round pick for 5 years, so I guess have fun in free agency. You stole D-Hop in that trade. Great. Here's the problem. You just wasted him last year. You had all the talent in the world and still underperformed enough to miss the playoffs. You beat Buffalo on the Hail Murray, but lost to teams like the Lions, Panthers, and Patriots in a division where every game matters. You certainly didn't see it that way, going 2-4 in the division. You have to be this tall to ride quarterback was running for his life behind that terrible O-line, and your secondary couldn't stop a slug. Let's see if all that talent you just brought in this offseason actually does you a benefit. And finally, the 49ers. The injury bug hit you the hardest, and it's continuing into this year already. You dropped all the way down to your 5th-string running back against New England, yet you still beat them with the running game. Your glass pane of a quarterback got injured. Again. Your best defenders all got hurt in Bosa and Sherman and many more, so you could say your bad season can be because of the plague. But this is the NFL where depth is important. You lost 7 of your last 9, and your Super Bowl season from the 2019 year dusted away like a snap from Thanos. You should hope all those first-round picks for a FCS quarterback are worth it. There were a lot of teams that made a lot of mistakes this past year, but it allows us to go ahead and laugh at all of them, just like these Giants players laughing at Daniel Jones tripping over nothing. But if you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. It would be greatly appreciated, as I put a lot of effort into this video, probably more than any other one to this point. So, please, if you aren't already, subscribe, leave a like, would help a lot in trying to grow this channel. Thank you again, cannot thank you enough. I get really annoying with it, but I really cannot thank you all enough, and hope you all have a great rest of your summer.